Hello and welcome to this week's press preview alongside Justin Conn. I'm Aren. A lot of basketball, all the holiday tournaments going on, and still a couple of championship games left to be played. You got over in Williamsville, Warrensburg's playing. We're taping this on a Monday, and then Flora and Effingham St. Anthony are down in Vandalia, and I guess Mount Zion, they're still playing down in Florida. So a couple games left over, but most of it has kind of been under wraps, and a lot to kind of digest after the big weekend. But what did you kind of see out of some of the winners from this last weekend?
We talked about maybe trying to do winners and losers, but it did seem like most of our area teams, there were a lot of winners, and there were a lot of teams that at least probably could take something positive from their tournament experience. They played decently. I guess the biggest winner, and this was tough, I mean, to pick, because there were a lot of tournament champions. I thought the biggest winner, though, was Lincoln. And we've been saying all year they've been number one in all of our top fives, and pretty much, I think when a new 3A poll comes out, you could make a legitimate argument that they're at least number 2 or 3.
Absolutely.
Because they have beaten everybody. They dominated the field at this Collinsville tournament. That was the first time. I was surprised that was the first time they'd won it since 2009, and they didn't play a single-digit game. No. They beat Belleville Altoff. That was a little bit closer game throughout, but they ended up winning by 10, and they pretty much just hammered everybody else. And right now they're just playing great basketball, and we'll talk a little bit more about them coming up. But they were the big winner to me just because I think their field was the toughest and they were the most impressive. There wasn't really a game that was in doubt for them. So that, for me, is the biggest winner.
Yeah, they had a 17-point lead at half in the championship game. I think every other game was at least 25 points. Pretty impressive. Edward Bowlby had a real big tournament. I think he had 8 threes on the last 3 games. Was kind of, I think, the leading scorer, or if not number 2 leading scorer. So a big tournament for him as well. I think, yeah, like you said, Lincoln, that's the biggest winner out of anyone. The way that they did it against, like you said, a field that's really, really tough. I mean, they have teams coming from all over the state. Some really good teams from Missouri as well. Got to be impressed with what they did.
And I would say, you can look down the list. St. Teresa had a really good holiday tournament. Arthur Levington played really well. Teutopolis, in a pretty tough field and against pretty much all schools bigger than them, won their championship. Warrensburg, no matter what happens in their game tonight, that's a good run for them to get to the championship, and I think they will win that one. But then they blew out Pleasant Plains, which I think was an eye opener. Their good play continues now, and I think they're a good tournament team in general. So going forward, they've played well. MacArthur lost the first game, and I talked to Philippe Phillips that night, and he was frustrated with their defense. And then they bounced back and won 3 games in Collinsville and won the consolation championship. And he was upset with their defense, and they played better on defense after that. They did give up 88 to Springfield Southeast in an overtime game, which they won. Then they give up 35 to Granite City. Granite City's not good, but still, they only give up 35 to them. And then, Quincy High, which is, perennially a really good team. They beat Eisenhower pretty handily, and they held Quincy to 49 and 1 by double digits against the Blue Devils. So, I think overall they came out of it. I would rate them as a winner, even though it was a consolation championship. I think that's a good run for them.
Yeah, Jerome Adams had a really impressive tournament. The first couple of games, he was their leading scorer, and it kind of took him more of a backseat, but still had almost double-digit rebounds the last couple of games. And to beat Southeast, a team with Jalen Henry, who's a Division I, going to be a Division I player next year, real big kid inside. So for MacArthur to be able to take on a team like Southeast, who has someone with a real big inside presence, and to beat them, I think that's a real big step for them as well. Warrensburg, they're taking on Plains. Plains also has a 6'8" kid, and for them to win by 20 plus, I think 23 is what the score ended up being. I think that's real big for teams that I know AJ Duff's like 6'4", and MacArthur and Warrensburg don't really have a huge guy where. For them to kind of be able to beat a team with such a big inside presence, I think that's a good step for them.
In Vandalia, you mentioned Flora and St. Anthony. They both have had great tournaments there against a pretty good field. I think St. Anthony has proven something, with what they did.
For sure, Coach Cody Rinker doing a really good job.
So that's a good run for them. Any more winners for you, Aren, as far as tournaments go?
No, I think you hit them. Definitely Teutopolis. I mean, I know Mount Vernon was kind of on a slide a little bit, but they handled them pretty well at the end. And seeing the Sullivan Clinton girls, both those teams played really well, and I think Sullivan, the fact that they've cemented their stats. So you think the top three in the OCA, Central A&M, Clinton, Sullivan, all really, really good teams, and Sullivan's beat both those teams on the last-second three-pointers now. So that I think they're already coming in as the number one seed, but I know maybe they felt like I talked to Britton Boyer. She said maybe they kind of felt Clinton should have been the number one seed. For them to get that and to win and kind of prove, okay, we're as good as as anybody else in the OCA and in that tournament. For them to get that win, it says a lot. And Taylor Edwards from Arcola, she just rolled through that tournament. Arcola, I think she had 20 plus points every night. Had 25 in the final game. She's playing as good as anybody right now, and she's been really impressive.
We talked a little bit about Taylor last night as being, she's a four-sport star. I don't think there's any other athlete in the area that's as good at their four sports. She's probably the best all-around athlete in our area, boys or girls, just with how she's top-notch at every sport. So yeah, Taylor Edwards is a pretty special athlete for Arcola right now. We talked about maybe trying to winners and losers. Honestly, there weren't a ton of teams that were losers. Argenna had a rough tournament in Monticello. They lost all their games, and against some teams they probably, figured they would beat or probably should have beat. Other than that, though, I don't know that there were any teams other than teams where we're piling on and they they were bad going in and they played poorly. Right. I think nobody else really. Most every other team at least lived up to your expectation of them. So
maybe a team had a game or something like that. For the most part, you look at the story as a whole. I think for the most part, teams have kind of had something to draw from to take them the next couple of months.
Sure. We want to talk a little bit about we talked about doing some second half predictions, and I'm thinking, I'm going to really wow them. I'm going to come up with this big outlandish prediction, and I don't have one. I really don't have anything too outlandish. In fact, all the predictions I made are pretty much people are going to roll their eyes because they're fairly obvious. But this I'm going to run through the conferences real quick. A few of the conferences in our area. In the OCA, I think St. Teresa wins the OCA, and I've kind of been saying that all year that I think they're the best team, and I also think they're going to win their regional, the Warrensburg regional. I think they're the best team in that. So, not really going out on a limb there, but I mean, do you kind of feel the same way on that, Aaron? Or
yeah, obviously, I think getting a win against Riverton, who they had problems in the past, and I think getting over that hump and getting a tournament win, that's big for St. Teresa. Having and a couple other really good teams in there. Connor Gross and Sarah Grodas been playing really well as well. But I think still St. Teresa, with the amount of depth that they have so many players that Tom Noonan can kind of makes a whole lot of different matchups with. I think that gives them a little bit of an edge as well. There's a lot to be played out. I mean, it's so early in the season; it's kind of hard to say, okay, yes, but for right now, I would give St. Teresa the edge.
And Warrensburg has played well, and they will have their say, but I still think St. Teresa is the team.
And they're just as balanced. I think Warrensburg's almost a little more balanced than St. Teresa too. So I think that does.
But Warrensburg may not have that guy at the top. Right. There's Christian Williams, who I think is playing as well as anybody in the area. I mean, he had a couple quiet games at St. Teresa, but the performance he had on Friday or on Saturday against Riverton was the best I've seen in a while. Arthur Levington, this is I think they're a heavy favorite to win the LOVC. I mean, I know Sarah Gordon-Ben's played pretty well, but Arthur's really been on a roll this year. I think they win their conference and regional. Effingham, I think they're going to win the Apollo, and their regional is winnable as well. I think the teams that I don't know a ton about are Centralia and Mascoutah. I don't think those are powerhouses by any stretch, and I liked what I saw at Effingham when I saw them against Mount Zion, and I think it's going to be a fun year for the Hearts. I know they lost to T-Town they've lost to them twice now. 2 of their 3 losses have been to T-Town, but I like them, and I think they're going to have a nice year and collect some hardware this year.
Yeah, I mean, they're already given Mount Zion fits. They've already given Mattoon fits. The thing about Mount Zion is, they have this tournament. They've been having this 5-some that's kind of been able to take this season, and if they keep developing. I mean, they just won the other night down in Florida. They've won 2, I think 2 out of 3 now. If they kind of keep that going, maybe they can catch up to Effingham. But I agree. I think Effingham's still kind of the top of the Apollo.
And then we talked about Lincoln. I think their regional, they're in with MacArthur and Eisenhower and Mount Zion. I think they take that regional. It's going to be fun in the Central State 8 because obviously Springfield Lanphier with Larry Austin they have been outstanding, and I know Lincoln beat them over the summer, but I think those are probably, when they hook up this year, I think that's probably, the matchup of the area right now, as far as or the region, I guess.
I think those two teams could be, top 3 of 3A right now, in one tight little area. So I think Xavier Bishop kind of brings a lot of things for Lanphier as well, where Larry Austin doesn't have to do necessarily everything. I mean, they can kind of defer and have someone who can take over a game, and him as well. And it'll be fun. I mean, Lincoln has a very different style of offense than what Lanphier runs, and to see those kind of clash will be really interesting to see how that kind of plays out too.
Aaron, do you have any? You're gonna blow my mind here with a prediction.
I'm not gonna blow your mind. I wish I think Flora, Bryce Pierce from Florida, a junior who was he was all right last year, really has played well this year, especially this tournament. He had a 32-point game, I believe, and has led his team all the way to tonight's championship games. We'll see how that goes. But I really think he's making a serious run at Area Player of the Year right now. Just the way that, he's playing, this team is winning. That's a good, perfect storm that they got down to Flora right now. And I think Clinton girls don't lose another regular season game. I think they win the OCOT tournament. I think that they go to the rest of the year without losing another game. I know it is so weird because they have such a good team, and they've had they lost this OCOT Valley tournament last year, and against Mount Pulaski the year before. So I think they've taken enough. I know that Haley Two Hills took the loss really hard, and I really believe that her leadership and so many of those players that are now sophomore or juniors, really, I think that they really can make a run, and I don't see them losing another game this regular season.
Yeah, I agree with that. I was really impressed when I saw them. They're not very deep, but I don't know that you have to be. Right. When you have starters that are that good, and that starting 5, and they do have a couple of pretty good players off the bench, but I agree with you. They're going to run in. Their regional is going to be awfully tough. I think the postseason could be a little bit of a disappointment because you have Bloomington Central Catholic in their regional, and if they were able to get out of that, they have St. Thomas More, who right now is I think
unbelievable.
Most people kind of feel like they're the best team in 2A. So that's tough. But yeah, regular season wise, I'm really impressed with them, and I think what I've seen out of them too, I think they've really grown up as a team, over these past couple of years, and really are a smarter basketball team now, and it's kind of going along with the physical gifts that they already had.
Yeah, and not taking anything away from A&M or Sullivan. I think all 3 teams really, I think, are right at that top, and they're all even. I think it just Haley Two Hill at the point just kind of gives them the edge right now.
Yeah, I agree. Make sure you check us out on Twitter and Facebook, of course, and on Pick'em. Play some Pick'em. I know I kind of forgot to make my Friday picks this week, but it turned out pretty well. I think I only missed 1 or 2 games in the Pick'em, so and I think we all had pretty good weeks in the Pick'em.
Yeah, that's right.
And so make sure you get on there, and of course check us out on hrpreps.com.